This is the 16,242 mile review of the 2022 Yamaha Tenere 700. It's dirty, but we're going on adventures. Can't even see the freaking license plate, so I don't have to worry about blocking any of that out. Okay, a lot of accessories. I'll talk through a couple of them, what my experience has been. Let's go on a journey, shall we? Right now we are in the middle of the woods in Snoqualmie, Washington. North Fork Road is what it's called. And I'm pretty deep out here, probably an hour in. Maybe not an hour. But let's talk about it. So I've had this bike. I got this April, like mid to late April of 2022, and it has been very good to me. The first year that I had it, I put on 6,000 to 8,000 miles. Then the next year I had it, I put on another, 6,000 miles or so, and then 5,000 or 6,000 in the most recent year. So as I record this, it is New Year's Day, 2025. Fortnite did this great review of the Tenere 1200, which is a bike that I had right before this, where he referred to it as boring. And that's sort of like a catch-22, because this bike is quite boring, but not in the motorcycle boring way. Yes, it's a Japanese Japanese bike, which means some bikes have a lot of power, I guess, but all the Japanese bikes that I've owned, which is every bike that I've owned actually, has not been exciting. I guess the FZ1 that I had was pretty exciting. This bike, not that exciting. It is flash. It's got an ECU flash, so it's pushing out 74 horsepower, and I think about 50 to 55 foot-pounds of torque. So it is not the fastest bike by any means, but it is, I think it's perfect. My buddies have 1200cc bikes, a KTM and a BMW, and we go on road trips, and sure, it might not have quite as much power, passing power, and I have to be a little bit more intentional and think a little bit more about what I'm going to do out there on the road, but it gets me from point A to point B. It can cruise all day at 80 miles an hour, 85 if I need to, 90 if we're out in Montana. So it's taken me on more adventures than any other bike that I've ever owned. And seemingly every single time that I get on it, it makes me smile. There are other bikes out there in the category that have popped up that have been intriguing since this one dropped. The Africa Twin has been redesigned. KTM has a new 790 bike that's out. Are there any more? The Transalp, I guess. Kinda, sorta. Suzuki redid their DE 800, or I guess created their 800. It's like there's a lot of bikes that are close, and in fact I've even gone as far as to re-look at some Super Tenere 1200s because there are some deficiencies on this that I'll get into in a minute, but ultimately this bike I have customized it to be so perfect for me that there isn't anything out there that is as enticing as this one. It's just it's got too much going for it, and maybe the biggest thing going for it is its reliability. So there's people that I know that have KTMs and BMWs, for instance, that are exciting, fast bikes, but there's times when they go out and the battery's dead, or there's an electrical problem, or my buddy had a Triumph that was out of commission for like 9 months because the ECU had completely blown and they were trying to fix it, and then it was on back order, and so, kind of issue after issue. This thing, I don't even have to plug it into a battery tender in the winter, and it just fires right up. I'm trying to think of what I've done since the last review that I did, which I think was at like 11,000 miles or so, 12,000 miles or so. I've lowered it an inch or two, so that's been good. Granted, I did the first 12 or 13,000 miles with it at its stock height, and lowering it an inch or two just gave me that much more confidence riding it. So that was a big improvement. I keep going back and forth on windshields. I have a big touring Madstad windscreen that functionally is very good, but I think it's so ugly, and I think that this bike is so beautiful and so good looking that the last thing I want to do is put this enormous windscreen on it, because I feel like it really diminishes its look. And I don't want to do that. So, but of course, by the time that I do the 20,000 mile review, who knows? And maybe it'll be back on. But it's sitting in the garage. It's paid for, so I'm not selling it, and that is what it is. I had a custom seat made last year in September or so. Spent a pretty penny on that. I think that was about $1,000. Ended up being a lot more expensive than I thought it would be. But I splurged, and I had it completely custom made for me, for my butt. Literally, they would form it and shape it, and then I'd go and sit on it, and then they would reshape it, and then I'd go ride it for 10 minutes, and they'd reshape it. It was a whole day's worth, or a whole ordeal to get it done. But it does fit me perfectly now, the seat, that is. What are some of the trips I've done with this? I did several sections of the Washington and Idaho BDRs. I did, with varying success, I did Yellowstone a couple years ago. That was great. I did Canada last week, so we went to Vancouver Island and rode around there. I've done a lot of riding like this, where some of it is nice and some of it's not. I did a little bit of single track. This bike's too big for that. It got to the point of not fun, and we're here to have fun is the part of it. But I want a big adventure in this coming year for my next summer trip. I don't really care a lot about where. I could go to Alberta. I could ride Banff. I could ride Eastern Oregon. I could ride the Washington BDR. I could do the NorCal BDR. So there's a lot that I can do that will satisfy me. But ultimately, this bike can do everything with little to no maintenance or headache and be just fine. So maybe I won't fly through this, but let's go. Woo! All right, I'm soaked. My boots are soaked, but they're waterproof, and that's why we're here. The accessories that I have, one more time if I can remember, I'm just going to go bottom to the top. This is in no particular order. It's got Alpina tubeless wheels on it. It's got a Rally Raid clear shield or headlight protector on the front. It's got Camel ADV foot pegs. It's got Camel ADV the fix. It's got Camel ADV one-finger clutch kit, which I don't know if that was really worth it, but Camel ADV clutch kit. It's got a Hussar high fend, or Hussar high exhaust, which is great. It's got, let's see here, Happy Trails pannier racks, hard pannier racks, and I had them redone by a welder so that they were very slim to the bike, which they are now, and they look great and they're functional, and I have hard bags and soft bags that work with those. So regardless of the adventure I'm doing, they will always work. I have a Happy Trails rear rack. I have the ODI bar. I have the Acerbis or Acerbi or whatever we call it. Handguards. I've got Oxford heated grips, which are great on this bike. Let's see here. Moto pumps, windshield risers, Power Bronze winglets, which are right here and there that I think are quite good. I wish I could remember the name of it. It's the power box thing. Goes under my seat. It's what I have the GPS and stuff hooked into, and the aux lights. I've got some Amazon auxiliary lights that are good, and then I've got a Rich's custom seat that is also very good. God, why am I having so much trouble remembering the names of some of these companies? Alt-Rider. I've got Alt-Rider lowering links on it. Like I said, it's I think I've got it at 30 millimeters lowered. And then I've also got an Alt-Rider adjustable kickstand. It's got an AXP plastic skid plate that I really like, except for changing oil is kind of a pain in the ass on it. That's not here nor there. It's got, Tusk from Rocky Mountain ATV. Tusk crash bars, which I don't know if they're needed or not, but they really work well for I've dropped the bike so many times, and I guess that it's protected the plastics, but there's lots of people that swear that this bike doesn't need them and that it's totally fine. So it's probably adding, 10 to 20 pounds of weight and girth that maybe it doesn't need. So, I don't know. Keep them, not keep them. They're 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 a little bent on the right side now, just from so much abuse and activity. But God, is that it on this bike? I'm probably like, I don't know, $5,000 into customizations on this bike, and the Alpina wheels were a gift, and so I can appreciate those. But I think that's it. I think that's all this bike has, and it's been great. It's been wonderful. So appreciate you watching this, and as long as I have this bike, I'll continue to make sporadic content. I'd love to make more, but I always say I'll make more, and then I just don't do it. But I've got a pretty good system now with this DJI camera, and I think maybe at some point this year I might get an Insta360 camera as well. So some of the videos I've done have gotten pretty good counts. I think the 5,000 mile review I did of this bike has like 20,000 views, and then the 11 or 12,000 mile review of this has another 10 or 14,000 or something like that. So I think people like Tenere 700 content. It's certainly not the sexy, highly sought after, impossible to find bike that it was anymore, where you were having to pay way over MSRP to get it. And I see them all over the place now, but yeah, and it's sort of like a little fraternity. I think it's a great bike. So, great place to sit, and I will keep this thing for presumably a lot longer. All right. Happy New Year to you, and I will talk to you all later.